Hello everyone and welcome to the Flying Waltz channel. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. This is my first, maybe only, we'll see. It's my first FNAF theory video on the channel. And this will be on a topic I've had in my mind for it's got to be a few weeks at this point. And that's the circumstances surrounding Charlie's death in the FNAF games. Specifically, there's a popular idea that she dies and possesses the puppet at Fredbear's Family Diner, and I strongly disagree with that. So strongly that I'm making this video to not only debunk this idea, but to provide evidence as to where she truly did die, which was Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. The only reason I find this so important to determine is that it tells us a lot about exactly when certain events in the timeline had to have happened, which is important if we ever hope to solve these games. I'd like to preface this by saying that, again, I aim to help solve the games specifically. I will not be taking any information from the Silver Eyes trilogy, Fazbear's Fright, or Tales from the Pizzaplex, except for character names otherwise not stated in the games. For example, the name Charlie never comes up in the games, but there's literally nothing else that I could call Cassette Man's daughter without it sounding really cumbersome, so Charlie it is. I'll try to present this evidence in order from weakest to strongest, and I will tie everything together at the end and give some more of my thoughts. So with that out of the way, let's begin. One of the main arguments I see for suggesting Charlie died at Fredbear's is the Take Cake minigame from FNAF 2, where we see a seemingly small location full of children, a brown bear, and of course there's a child outside who's then murdered by Purple Guy before the minigame ends with the puppet's jump scare. We later see another perspective of this event in FFPS or FNAF 6, which gives us even more context as to what happened. The obvious thing to refute here is that the bear is brown, so it being Fredbear makes no sense, and I do agree with that, but the bigger point I want to get at is the size of the building. The common argument I've seen is that the building is so small it cannot be anywhere but Fredbear's. However, for this point to stand, you have to assume that these minigames have some sort of scale. Many minigames throughout the franchise, especially in FNAF 2, consist of a single animatronic and set pieces that the animatronic can interact with. Give Gifts, Give Life is literally just a puppet in a small room with the corpses of the MCI victims. Foxy Go 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 is literally just Foxy in a room connected to another room with the MCI victims. These minigames clearly only show what is absolutely necessary to show to get across the specific points they want to get across. The exceptions are ones like Save Them and the Between Night FNAF 3 minigames, where Scott goes out of his way to show us the entire, or close to the entire, layouts of the building so we can know exactly where we are in these minigames. Save Them is the entire FNAF 2 location to showcase that another missing kids incident has happened. The FNAF 3 minigames want to convey that yes, Springtrap is in the back room of the FNAF 1 location, implying that the FNAF 1 location was an older location repurposed for the 93/2003 reopening. There is nothing to indicate that the Take Cake minigame is one of these examples. It follows the exact same formula as minigames like Foxy Go Go with a single animatronic in a small area. This is not proof that this event occurs at Fredbear's. So this is one, again, I'll be going from weakest to strongest. This is a little bit stronger, and this is that Fredbear's Family Diner and the puppet are never once linked, associated, shown, etc. with each other in the games. It doesn't happen at all, ever. Every minigame that we know is showcasing Fredbear's is one with Fredbear and Spring Bonnie on a stage. There's never a third animatronic in the location. This is especially apparent in FNAF 4, where we see even more of Fredbear's, and there's still no other character. This is distinct from the examples in FNAF 2, as FNAF 4 is an example of a set of minigames that allows you to travel beyond just one or two small rooms. The general picture is that in FNAF 4, you're exploring a very small series of locations that are all connected. It's not an event where it's like we see a room that's just Foxy and 5 kids to showcase the MCI. This, in my opinion, would align it more closely to things like Save Them and the FNAF 3 minigames. But I digress a little bit. A bigger point I want to get to is we see parts and service for Fredbear's in FNAF 4. I think, was it night 4? Maybe night 3? One of those Between Night minigames, we see the parts and service room. And there are only endoskeletons and parts for Fredbear and Spring Bonnie. Again, like in the other minigames, we've only ever seen Fredbear and Spring Bonnie at Fredbear's. All signs point to this location only having 2 animatronics. FNAF 4 itself is a game that seems to reference past and future events in the franchise, and yet the puppet is one of the few things the game has nothing to say about, which is strange. even disregarding all this Charlie stuff, it's strange that there's no like real hint towards the puppet. There's a toy nodding to Mangle in Elizabeth's room, a finger trap Spring Bonnie toy, which is kind of a meta reference to Springtrap Plus Trap. A toy Chica missing her beak, which again is like a kind of a meta reference to FNAF 2, and giving us some context as to why that is a feature that she has in FNAF 2. And yet the only nod to the puppet is a character stated to be not canon from the Halloween update, which is Nightmare On. Now in modern FNAF, characters that were previously not canon seem to be having some kind of resurgence, or they've been recontextualized as characters from in-universe games. So Nightmare could definitely be canon in that he's a character from a game, and you even see like his plush toys and him having his own arcade cabinets in Security Breach. But at the time of FNAF 4, it was just not canon, and basically to the lore, there's not much pointing to Nightmare having much significance. Unless you want to take into account FNAF's videos, which are cool, but that's kind of, again, I digress a little bit, kind of getting off the point. My point being that there is no nod or connection to or with Fredbear's Family Diner and the puppet. Not only do we not see it, but this connection is never brought up, mentioned, nodded at, hinted at, unless you look at third-party sources, the books, which I already stated is not what I'll be doing in this video. There just isn't any, like, in the books Charlie dies at Fredbear's, but there's nothing to point to her dying at Fredbear's in the games. The stuffing. Okay, so next we have Give Gifts Give Life itself, which I briefly mentioned earlier, but I have a lot more to say about it. In this minigame, we see the puppet first give gifts to 4 dead children before giving them the masks of the core 4 Freddy's animatronics. The minigame ends with a split-second frame of a 5th child and the Golden Freddy jump scare, which seems to imply that the 5th child never received a gift from the puppet, but that's a little bit more speculative. The main point of bringing this minigame up is, although it has a level of symbolism to it, its message is the same. The puppet gave life to the MCI victims. Whether it literally stuffed them or simply enabled them to possess their respective suits, it is clear that the puppet had to have some kind of interaction with them for them to be possessed at all. If the puppet gave the MCI children life, and the MCI children died at Freddy's before FNAF 2, this is essentially direct confirmation that the puppet was in the same building as the MCI kids' bodies. The MCI again was at Freddy's, it was not at Fredbear's. So we know that the Wizards are stuffed before FNAF 2, we know the puppet revived them somehow, and we know the puppet was at a location with a brown bear. So the sprites. The sprite from Take Cake and Withered Freddy from Give Gifts are the exact same color palette. They're the same character. May seem strange to bring this up now, but as I was working on this video, I came across an image on Reddit comparing the exact hex codes for Freddy's top hat, buttons, eyes, mouth, and fur color. And honestly, I feel like this is my smoking gun. Huge shout out to u/F-N-A-F-G-Y-F-R for creating this. That's a wild username. But thank you for creating this image that neatly lays out that these two are clearly intended to be the same robot. Not only is Freddy brown and Fredbear yellow, which is also important, that every time we ever seen Fredbear he's been yellow, except maybe Security Breach. But again, that's like the past 8 years or 7 years before that game, there is no brown Fredbear, unless I'm forgetting something. Fredbear's always been yellow. But Scott chose to use the exact same color palettes for both sprites in 2 separate minigames within the same game. If he was trying to suggest that the Cake Freddy was Fredbear, then I feel like, maybe he'd have some kind of discoloration, or he'd have some kind of unique coloration, or some unique thing about him that would be definitive, oh, this is his own character. But the fact that he uses the exact same color palette as what we know, again, from the previous point, is Freddy, which becomes Withered Freddy, in Give Gifts, is just super strong. This is Freddy. This is not Fredbear. Thanks to previous evidence we reviewed, we know this isn't Toy Freddy or some other random other character. Everything points to this being the original Withered Freddy, who of course was not withered at this point in the timeline. In a game series where a purple guy can have 2 different shades in the same game, again, FNAF 2, why would Scott reuse the exact same palette for 2 completely different characters if this was supposed to be Fredbear? You may say that he did not know what color Fredbear would be yet, and that he had changed his mind over the course of the series, but I have proof to the contrary. Not only does Scott say that while developing FNAF 2, he had FNAF 3 in mind, which is from the Dawko interview. I might put a clip of audio if I can find that specific quote. But FNAF 3 confirmed Yellow Fredbear, and he was working on FNAF 2 with FNAF 3 in mind. Phone guy says a yellow suit was used. We thought it was Golden Freddy, but with FNAF 3 we know it wasn't Golden Freddy. Basically, dude had the yellow suit concept in mind already. But not only is there all of that, but during the teaser cycle for FFPS or FNAF 6, he used this sprite. If this isn't ringing any bells, this is the exact same sprite from Take Cake to the Children. He's using this to tease a game called Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator. There's no way this is an accident. This sprite was 3 years old at this point in the franchise, and yet Scott was compelled to specifically seek it out to tease a game that would be revealed soon after to be based on Freddy Fazbear and not Fredbear. It's not Fredbear's Pizzeria Simulator or Diner Simulator, it's Freddy's, and he's using this brown bear sprite to tease the game. Of course, in the final game, a different sprite was used, which isn't surprising, as Scott would use different models and teasers, and then in the actual game, like in FNAF 2, Classic Foxy was used to represent Withered Foxy. He might have not had the model done yet until that other teaser with Foxy and the guy in the office, that red teaser. There's no place to hide, exactly. There's no place to run, exactly one place to hide. But even in that example, it's still Foxy. Withered Foxy is eventually Classic Foxy. It's not like he's using two completely different characters. Like, he's not using Classic Freddy as a stand-in for Withered Foxy. He's using a Foxy that does eventually become the Foxy from that game. And he probably, if I had to guess, he just didn't have the model done yet. Or maybe he just thought the original design was cooler. I feel like that was a really cool teaser. Anyway, not really the point. The point is, he used this brown sprite. And this is basically, everything's pointing to this being Freddy. And which also suggests, heavily implies, downright confirms that the death outside of the location was a death outside of Freddy's. Actually, I have one more little thing I'd like to add. I feel like you could easily refute this, but it's just a little cherry, on top of my argument. This image, so this is a FNAF merch, is official as far as I'm concerned. Tell me if I'm wrong. I could be wrong, in which case disregard this little bonus. Oh, it says bonus on the image. That's cool. But now these models aren't perfect. Like Purple Guy, what the hell is up with this dude? But most of these are from FNAF 2. Even the Purple Guy one is based off of the one from FNAF 2. These are all FNAF 2 sprites. And if you look closely at the top right, Freddy. It's Take Cake Freddy. So again, it's not super hard evidence, but take this and then take everything I've said today. The teaser for Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator having this exact sprite that we're looking at now. The puppet never being seen at Fredbear's. The stuffing having to have happened before FNAF 2. The minigames, the room size, not confirming the size of the location, etc. All these points, and then here's literally merch just calling this a Freddy model. It's Freddy. I feel like this is pretty conclusive. All this together is pretty conclusive. Again, listen to the individual point, you could say, oh, merch is kind of inconsistent, which I agree with, but I just think it's really funny. I wasn't looking for this. I just ran into this while I was doing research for this video on the FNAF wiki, and yeah, it's Freddy. I mean it's Freddy. So yeah, in conclusion, yes, you could say this is conclusion. Nothing points to that sprite being Fredbear. Nothing points to the puppet being at Fredbear's. And again, all these other points. A big thing I also want to add is that I don't think it's fair to use book lore to outright replace and overwrite game lore. I believe Scott had a statement. I don't remember fully. I could be wrong, but I believe he had a statement where he said the books could be used to fill in the gaps in the game story. Like, things you may not understand in the games may be clarified in the books, but they're still two separate universes. I'm pretty sure that's one of his initial statements about the book. about the Silver Eyes when it was coming out. Just because it happened one way in the Silver Eyes trilogy doesn't mean it happens the same way in the games, especially when there's so much more consistent evidence pointing towards a different outcome if you look at the games closely. So yeah, these are my big points. Depending on how this goes, I may do a follow-up video to address comments and concerns, or I may just end up doing a completely different theory altogether. We'll see. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope it was eye-opening, a little bit eye-opening. I hope this debunks Charlie Fredbear's, because I feel like Charlie Fredbear's is harmful to putting together this timeline, which maybe I'll go into in the future in a different video. But basically, I feel like it's important to understand that Charlie dies at Freddy's, which means a lot of other things in that timeline had to have happened before or after. You know, like Bite Victim would have to be before, MCI of course is after, etc. But yeah, so I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like, comment, subscribe, all those good things. I have like 2 subscribers on this channel. If you guys like this content, you want to see more of it, like, comment, subscribe. But yeah, I will see you later.